Hello, everybody. My name's Milan Starcic. Welcome to Freedom Rising, a podcast dedicated to empowering individuals on the journey to personal growth, lasting serenity, and freedom from addiction. Tune in and join the movement. Your journey to freedom starts here. We neither represent, promote, or demote any 12-step program or organization. We are merely souls on the path of recovery with the desire to expand our lives and experiences and share them with you. Hello, everybody.
Hi out there in recovery land.
Welcome to the 76th Recovery Freedom Rising podcast. I'm Milan Starcic with co-host Jim A. and soon-to-be Andrew Normand. Today's topic is H.A.L.T. Can you share what this means to you, Jim, and why you were happy to come and discuss this here today?
Hi friends, I'm an alcoholic member of the Attitude Adjustment group here in Oakville, Ontario, Canada. We start at 7 a.m. on Zoom every day till 8 o'clock, and we even meet at the same time at our regular church. We've got two going on at once. Glad to be here. It's good to see my good buddy Milan, who has become an instant friend from our days in February when we met in Mexico in Sayulita.
Absolutely.
H.A.L.T. Well, I have a whole bunch of cheeky ones for H.A.L.T. Maybe we'll bring them out one at a time.
Yep.
But H.A.L.T, the one that we hear a lot of H.A.L.T is hungry, angry, lonely, and tired. So phone up the pizza place, invite the driver in to have pizza with you. Oh, that's not what it means. What it means is that at any one of these four things, I am distracted from my best self, and that it kind of sets me up. And over the years, I have developed the amazing talent to do maybe all four at once, and that makes me a really not so nice person. If I get so absolutely focused on what I'm doing to the exclusion of all else, kind of a shade of workaholism comes in, and I will forget to eat. I'll probably work way too much into the night, therefore my sleep is off. Now I'm tired. And then maybe the next day, because I'm tired, I get the efforts and I get lazy. And then hungry, and angry. I'm angry at myself for not doing things. So I can create a storm inside myself that sets me up for reconnecting with my bad habits, reattaching myself to resentment, self-centeredness, fear, and then there's our good old buddy anger comes back again. So what do I got to do about it? Well, go to the fridge, make a cup of tea, and grab a piece of cheese or an apple, and get that taken care of. Maybe and when that's done, pick up the phone somebody. Because if I'm lonely, if you think of somebody, phone them. Because guess what? They may be lonely too. It's happened twice this morning at my 7 a.m. meeting, where in the last 24 hours, I've thought about 2 or 3 people, and guess what? They all showed up this morning. It's kind of cool. But no, loneliness. The four elements there, sometimes H.A.L.T can also say you can blend them all together, and H.A.L.T can change to having a lousy time, because any one of those will put me into that spot. So
Absolutely.
yeah.
So, for me, I kind of entered this program by going to treatment in October in 2023. One of the things they taught us about there was H.A.L.T, and they relate it to emotional sobriety. Like if we're not emotionally sober, that can be like pre-lapse conditions to what would lead us back to either drinking or drugs, and it was so it was like the early warning sign, kind of like if you're changing lanes and you're tired at night when you're driving and it goes whoa 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 whoa, you're like, whoa, I got to get back over to my lane instead of going into the ditch. And so for me, it's been it's been part of how I formed my program. Like I used to say that sleep was for, sleep was for pussy, sleep was for when I die, and now I really see it as a valued integral part of my program. If I'm not rested, it's really easy to get off the trains, and even just hungry. Like, man, if I'm not hungry, I can be like, whoa, I'm like a little 2-year-old or something, just kind of like crying out for that food, and for the L, the lonely, they say the opposite of addiction is connection. And the first thing our disease wants to do is get us alone and let us spiral, you know, and angry. If I'm angry, I'm just living in resentments. But I'll tell you, if I'm hungry, lonely, or tired, there's a good chance I'm going to be more angry than not. You know. So I'm going to jump right into a question here, and are you up for that, there, Jim?
Sure, yeah. Now, while you were talking there, I was reminded of that Snickers commercial with Robin Williams in it, and just a raging lunatic. And he gives them and we could go on and on again about sugar. That could be a whole other podcast at some time, but maybe not here. But if my sugar levels are low, I can be just a variety of things, and I don't know which one it's going to be.
But it's probably not nice, and it's probably not serene.
Guaranteed.
It's probably not nice, serene, or,
I
or
ain't sweet because I haven't got my sugar.
yeah. And yeah, you know what? That is a great. I would love to do a topic on sugar like that because I got a lot of different theories about, what I've felt like through my life. Like I feel that in some ways alcohol is like a refined sugar addiction.
Rum and Seven made me a real sweet guy
Till it didn't.
till it didn't.
Yeah. Okie dokie.
Okay.
So, meeting nutritional needs allows our body to operate to the highest potential and will keep us feeling better. However, when we halt and assess our situation, we can describe a hunger for less tangible things such as affection, accomplishment, and understanding. How do you address a hunger for these less tangible things?
Hunger for things not on a plate. That's what you're
That's
asking.
right. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, yeah. So the hunger for self-approval, the hunger for attention. Uh, I had my uh, area's General Assembly this weekend, and I do have the distinct honor and privilege of being an area officer. And I worked really, really hard at getting prepared for it. But yet, a little bit of fear crept in, but by all accounts, I did okay. So there is that in the build up for that, there is this hunger for um, fear of the negativity that usually happens. So I'm hungering for a bit of serenity. And I cheekily, when I went to the microphone, I said, "You guys, you two fans here, you can pick one of two songs today. It's going to be a beautiful day, or it's Bloody Sunday, Bloody. So Sunday, Bloody Sunday." And it turned out to be a beautiful day. How do I deal with that? Um, yeah, I mean, I'm looking for self-approval. I can be whiny. I can be whiny and clingy and annoying. And if I'm looking for see, I retired recently, so the whole work thing, I've shoved that away in another door and I padlocked it, so I've forgotten about that. But if I go back to, well, this weekend I had an opportunity. I created a new concept that we were trying to enshrine in our standard operating procedures, and I didn't get forceful. Whether it passed or not is not up to me, and I'm using this as an example of letting it go, letting go of any emotional investment I had in it. It's just something that I thought of, and other people really liked it, and other people were confused by it, and other people didn't like it. At the end of the day, I got rid of the confusion, and I got more people to the like side than the unlike side, and we got it passed. I'm happy about it, but I'm not gloating. Um, and it does, like you said, it does go back to emotional sobriety. It goes back to knowing who you are. and getting in touch with your emotions and getting in touch with all of that. We do have a couple of emotional sobriety grapevine books that are fascinating, you know. And one of the title, the subtitle of the first one is Emotional Sobriety, the Final Frontier, you know, instead of Bar Trek, it's Star Trek.
I like that. I like that a lot.
Yeah.
It's without awareness, I just sometimes felt like I was the crying little baby that didn't know what it wanted. You
Yeah.
know, I would say that I was probably somewhere in my late 20s when I recognized my reaction to the absence of food, like we were referring to. But the lonely or the angry, I don't think it was until the step work that I could see my part in these things. And I think I was pretty quick to be living in the blame game, of resentments that I was basically
Mhm.
putting on other people. And it was I found it to be humbling and challenging coming into the program to have to start owning that it was me, and
Mhm.
that it was hard. And so it's I would say that trying to take an objective look, like with things like my moral inventory, and through through making amends if necessary. Like the step 10 is a good calibrator for me to address a hunger for those intangible things.
Mhm.
Because I can, by doing that quick step 10 throughout the day, it recalibrates me and lets me refocus on things, you know?
Why am I upset right now? Which one of those four is it? Or is it something else? Is it,
Hmm.
depression, anxiety, fear? You know,
Yeah,
step 10, if I mess up, I fess up and I clean up.
exactly. But, sometimes it takes that stopping, like the halt, it takes that stopping to actually be able to see what it is that happened or what was done wrong.
Exactly. Because halt in any of, halten Sie in German, stop.
Yep.
Halt does mean stop.
Yeah,
Stop and take a breath.
that's
Put the
right.
shovel down. The hole is big enough. Stop and think about what you're doing right here, right now, and why. Maybe it's
E-
not right. Maybe you can
Even where we met
shift
in
gears.
Mexico, right? The sign is alto,
Okay.
which is
Yeah.
just missing the H,
Yeah.
you know? And for sure, if we don't take that second to pause, I think we're just like cars that are rolling down hills with no brakes. We're just like, we're steering the corners, but we're not really addressing the
I'm not in
situation of why we're
control. I
out
am
of
not in
control.
control.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
whole way down. Do you have a question for me?
Um, okay. Have you heard in any other versions of Halt?
Well,
Anybody playing with that? Well, or should we let's save that one for
yeah,
our buddy acronym Andy, because I'm sure to God he's got something there.
yeah.
Um, hungry, angry, lonely, and tired. What makes you angry?
This is my current thing that I think is my greatest struggle is, intolerance and expectations. I feel that I I spend a lifetime creating these mental scenarios with people in relationships where I'm having an expectation of some kind of reciprocation or deserve this kind of treatment. And erroneously, that just leads to a resentment every single time. And not accepting somebody as they are, it also removes me from my present moment and, my conscious contact. So I think that, those two things are definitely the biggest culprits in my life. And what about for you?
Yeah, expectations are just unborn resentments. Um, yeah, I mean, it's about why can't you see the logic in this? Why do I have to explain this to you? I'm thinking in terms of um, it's like and in the process of doing that, I'm putting myself above them, and that's not necessarily right. And I forget completely that this goes back to think, and keep an open mind slogan, but not everybody has to or has the ability to learn the same thing the same way in the same order that I do, and they need not do so. And um, if you can meet people where they are and understand them, you might be able to develop a method of teaching them in their terms that works. Back to last weekend, I said one particular word, consumable, expenses, and one guy clicked in and heard it completely, and it clicked for him. Another person got up the microphone, said basically the same way, used different words, and a whole bunch of other people clicked in. I know that angry, not getting my own way. Yes, that's the childish part of it. Anger. Sometimes the anger is pointed at myself. You know, if I'm doing this, I got three coming back, and I'm angry at myself for not having the courage to do something, or I'm angry for myself for going about 6 or 7 words too far, maybe, or it comes out in body language. The door gets closed a little more vigorously than it needs to be. My tone in my voice changes, the volume changes, my diction becomes very precise and slow so that I know absolutely that you understand what I'm talking about. And that's just
Whoa.
being mean. Yeah.
Ooh, that
Yeah.
was mean, nasty
That
sound.
can be that, but I'm not using nasty words and I'm not using tone. Well, actually, I am using tone, but I'm not using
Mm.
volume, but I am being very dictatorial. And that is not a nice thing. Um, yeah, it comes and it goes, and I have to watch myself carefully. Oh, stop it.
Yeah, exactly. It's
Yeah,
that pause that can bring some perspective, and
yes,
that's almost like it's almost like trying to grab a train as it's going by, though. Like it feels like it could pull your arm out of its
yeah,
socket because it's
yes.
happening so fast sometimes.
Well, for our Canadian friends on this one, but they'll know who I'm talking about. But for our American friends, we used to have a sports broadcaster, hockey broadcaster, who um, said exactly what was on his heart. So they put a 7 second delay on his comments so that the CBC could mute him or do something or bleep him or whatever. But that's the pause. I need to put the DC pause in place. Not
Yeah,
without saying names, but
yeah,
if you're Canadian, you know exactly what I'm talking about.
yeah. I think every Canadian knows exactly what you're talking about there.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So, to alleviate hunger, do not turn to destructive habits or negative people. While
Mm.
these things could temporarily bring relief, they will not fill the physical or emotional emptiness you're feeling. Instead, find something wholesome to eat with a good friend or a loved one. How have you used the program to add healthy people to your life?
Um, hmm. Going out for breakfast at 8 o'clock around the corner from our church. I used to do that with my sponsor once a week, and that was our sponsor meeting. And then we grabbed another guy who was a newcomer. And now about once a week, um, and maybe even twice a week. So we spread around to different restaurants in the neighborhood. But we have no less than 7 or 8, maybe as many as 12 go for breakfast on Friday. It's become a tradition. We started the day off with an AA meeting, put some spirit in place, put the emotions in place, having a nice breakfast with everybody, wishing them all well for a great weekend. It just changes my mood completely. That's one thing. But the hunger, yeah, the hunger for other things. Yeah, there are destructive things that can be done to use to fill it. But after what, it's just like eating donuts, it's empty calories. Certain other activities can be empty calories in their own fashion. It satisfies for the minute, and it's just like the booze. It's satisfied for the minute, but it wore off. So and go some more, you know. unless you're swinging for you're really angry and you're swinging for the fences and you just pound and pound and pound and pound. And that's a different story. But um, yeah, I try to eat. I mean, I still like my donuts, and I should start thinking of them as do nots. But
Do not.
little bits of Tim have made big bits of Jim. So
And
round is a shape too, and I got to watch it. And I was thinking about that yesterday. My diet wasn't too good, but it's there are days when the vegetables on the plate get consumed first.
you know, it's funny. I just did a podcast with someone on Monday about discipline. And
Oh, that's good.
the interesting thing that came up about that was that discipline is the true path to freedom in life. You know, like all the negative talk we have, like, you know, like right now, you're like, whoa, I'm eating too many donuts, right?
Yep.
And if you were like fastidious about your diet and that wasn't an issue, right? You just
Hmm.
simply eat the right thing and move on. And that eating doesn't take any more mental space before or after.
Yeah.
It's just part of your discipline. And you know, and for myself, I'm a snacker. Like this, that is an issue for me is snacking. You
Me
know,
too.
and last night, I made the pledge to myself. I was going to a birthday, like someone's 1 year, and I was like, nope, I'm not eating the cake. I'm just going to come home. I want to have a good sleep because what I've come to realize is that I am not sleeping well because of snacking. Like it is literally a massive effect on my sleep.
Yeah.
And then talk about, you know, hungry, angry, lonely, tired. Like I'm I'm grumpier the next day and I'm tired the whole day. And so it's like I feel like for myself I just have to make those adjustments and move forward, you know, and but I never thought of discipline as freedom until this guy said one quote on there on the podcast the other day. And I was like, you know, it's almost quite a lot like our addictions, whether it's alcohol
Mm.
or drugs, is that part of your brain that's occupied with, you know, the shame and the guilt and, you know, the consumption and, you know, the anxiety that's involved. Like all that gets to melt away if we can put ourselves on a good schedule.
Right. And what is the root of our undiscipline? Being told what to do, fitting
Yeah.
into rules.
Yeah.
Um, don't tell me when to go to bed. You know, I used to
Or,
fall. I was living by myself. I fall asleep in front of the TV. No big deal.
but discipline, like, you know, for certain things, it's not even necessarily psychological as it's a muscle we haven't built up like to flex
Yes.
for it to act in instinctual, like habit forming takes
Yes.
repetition. And if we don't do it for a certain amount, even when we don't want to, it won't become second nature.
Exactly. It takes about 6 weeks to get a good habit, and not
Hmm.
doing it for 2 weeks makes it a bad habit again. Um, Second nature. Yeah. I retired last year. My wife and I go every morning from 9 to 8, 9 to 10 for an exercise class or yoga class or stretch class. We're doing something together, and it has been built into my day. And I've been doing it now for almost a year, no, about a year now. And I do notice if I don't do it,
Yeah.
and I need to apply that actual principle to everything I do. I'm looking at my desk right now, and it was sort of cleaned up for um, someone that was visiting this week, but it's been pushed to next week. Um, no, it's the age old, you know, it's easier to keep it clean than to get it clean.
And it's
Go
easier to
back,
work with it clean. It's easier to
right,
work with.
go back to our program. You start really cleaning it. You pull the big weeds in 4 and 5, 6 and 7, 8 and 9, and 10 is for the little weeds that pop up on a daily basis. Why can't I do that with everything else? And if I do
Yeah.
that with everything else, my 10 is real short.
Yeah, exactly. It's less maintenance required. Like
Yep.
it's like cutting your grass. If you cut your grass once a week, your
Yep.
grass cuts nice and pretty. But if you
Yeah.
try to cut your grass every 6 weeks, your lawnmower bogs down. It looks all shit and bent over, and like it just doesn't work the
You might
same
even
way.
wreck the lawnmower.
Yeah, yeah, pretty much. Well, I think at least out here, with the sun we get, man, and yeah, every 6 weeks is way too long. It
Yeah.
won't even work on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, or you got to run it over 5 times, like so it's not the
Yeah.
quick, easy inventory. You know,
Okay.
yeah. So how have I used the program to add healthy people to my life? Like, first of all, I think that I'm surrounding myself with more like-minded people these days. Like in the same way that in my addiction, I hung out more with addicts near the end.
Hmm.
Like misery loves company, but so does serenity. And just like how we met down in Mexico, because why? Because we were both making sure our program was still going,
Yeah.
and then I think that starting that beach meeting gave me the opportunity to kind of extend these brief meetings with people and turn a bunch of them into friendships, because we had a bit more time away from, like, okay, it's starting, okay, it's over, like, there was a bit more chatting and socializing that got to happen with that. And even this podcast is giving me a way to have some really cool conversations with people that
Hmm.
that aren't just kind of to me, that are exploring the life and psychology of the program.
Right. A little less informality sometimes works best. I'm thinking too of the friends I had before I came in and the friends I had after. And it's been a while. And the friends I have had before are very few now. Um,
What
I have
percentage would you say are in the program that are part of your day to day?
dated, oh, I'm going to say 95 at least. Um, I go to a meeting. Now that I'm doing this exercising, I am meeting nice people. And then with Ginny's friends that have become my friends, maybe 95 is a little high, maybe 75. But we've got one of the gentlemen in our group is moving up the street here in the last couple of days, so it's nice. We have a small community here, but our street is known as Alcoholic Alley because in every block there's at least one member. Um, yeah, it's crazy. We can all walk to the church, which is cool. Um, but yeah, the people that I meet, I think I'm a little more discerning now too, that if I do meet new people, um, I can sense something. I can detect. I mean, we're alcoholics, so we got the bullshit detector, and it still goes off. But I can see them a mile away now, whereas not so much before. Um, Someone to drink with was more important than loneliness, right? So that's what we did. Or when I was in my 20s, I had a small place in a very popular part of Toronto, and every night off to the bar. That was my entertainment and socializing, and it was all wrapped around music and booze. And now I don't drink, but the music is still there. And we have lots of friends that are musicians. And we're spending a lot of time going to concerts and stuff like that. And it's just a great life. There's no drinking involved. And the ones that do drink as they would anyway. And my not drinking is none of their business, and their drinking is none of my business. And no one's out of whack about that. It's pretty good. So, yeah,
That
it's
sounds
okay.
great.
Yeah. How about you? What's the percentage of people in your life that are members and then non-members, I guess is one way of calling it.
There is only two of my previous friends that I still
Yeah,
kind of do anything with,
yeah,
we kind of do more like walking, hiking, maybe shooting some golf balls together,
right,
but not stuff where, like, I'm not going to a party to watch them party.
right,
Like
right.
party, like not that I feel weak. I just feel like partying's not a spectator sport. And
Yeah,
then, a big part of who I hang out with is my family, and my wife has never been a drinker. Like she like a big night for her would be like I think like maybe I saw her drink 4 drinks once, and she's tiny, you know, she's tiny, and 4 drinks is like a
Yeah.
lot. Like she'd be
Yeah.
wasted after 4 drinks, and that was once her 40th birthday, and I'm not going to say how many years ago that was, but it was a while ago, and
Yeah.
so. I'm in a little bit of a bubble with my family and our farm. When I go out to work, I get invited all the time by clients, like, oh, let's go have a drink. And I'm like, oh, I could watch you drink, but I don't drink anymore, and I feel that that has limited some of my relationships with some of them. Like some people, like I said a little while ago, misery loves company. And, and they definitely want you to be on that same page for a connection. But, as far as all my other friends are, they're all people in the program because
Yeah.
either I'm working, hanging out with my family, or I'm doing this podcast or going to meetings. And so, it's almost all people in the program external to, my family that I'm around, like 100% of the day when because I work from home most of the
Mm.
time, like you go out for showings and that, but really, the life of a realtor, a lot of it is with your computer and from home and on your phone and interacting and liaisoning. It's not necessarily being at your listing or being at a showing. Like if I've got to show you 40 houses, it means I'm not listening to you. Like,
Mm.
like we're probably going to go out once or twice before you buy something. So, but I think though that for me, it's really important. I'm really fascinated with the program. I'm really fascinated with learning and evolving and growing inside this process. And so I want to surround myself with people who are either, at that same point or maybe farther ahead like yourself where I can learn from, you know, like sometimes a couple sentences changes a whole day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, like an area assembly, I see some of these people every 6 months. You get up behind a microphone, everybody knows you, but you don't know them. So it's a little weird. I can't really call them friends. Acquaintances would be a stretch even. Um, but it is refreshing that people in your life are, I can walk into a meeting anywhere between Windsor and Cornwall in Ontario, which is most of Southern Ontario now because of you know time spent so far. But it is a nice thing. Um, we have I would invite anybody that wanted to come to our meeting. I can. Is there a chat feature here I can put the Google coordinates or the Zoom coordinates in or not?
You
Possibly.
know what?
I,
We
I,
can,
I'll let them go to. We'll do that later. That's advertising. Sorry.
no, no, you,
Um,
you can definitely advertise, and I'm into people promoting their stuff on here.
okay.
That's one thing. The simplest way, though, is for us to put it in the comments, either
Okay.
once the actual show is up.
Okay. Done.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Cool.
anybody looking for Jim's info, once we have the show posted, you can just add it to the comments there, and
Cool.
just
Great.
look below, guys.
Yeah. Um, One of the most powerful things I've ever experienced. You go to meetings, you're with your people. You go to service assemblies and things like that, and sleep area communities. You're with a different set of people, but they're still your people. Because of COVID, we went to Zoom the very first day. We had shutdowns here in Canada, and our Zoom call, still to this day, has about 50 people on it. And of the 50 people, maybe 10 are from the immediate local area, and we have a lot of people from all over the place. A couple of years ago, one of the former members who used to live here in the local area moved to Dominican Republic. She came back for her 10 year, and at the same time, she shared an Airbnb with one of our Zoom visitors from Holland, one from Atlanta, two from Philadelphia. And the feeling when they all walked in the room of family, and this is one of the reasons you join a group, right? It's a new family. But I have never felt such pure love and joy and pure humanity. And like it was palpable. The walls were almost vibrating with it. Um, that's connection at its greatest form for me. And that's the answer for the loneliness part. And I'll never forget that.
They say get a home group or you're homeless.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah,
I if you're not feeling it with a particular group, somebody out there who's new, just keep
yeah,
trying because you will find your tribe. And when you
yeah,
do, hang on tight because it really is, it really is quite a wonderful thing to start building a family that way. And
it is.
I've seen some people who say, "Oh, I just don't feel a connection," blah blah blah. Like in my response to that is, what is your level of service and what is your level of engagement? Like
Hmm.
if you're not showing up a little bit early for a meeting or staying a little bit late, or making yourself involved, how do you expect to meet the people when you can't talk in the middle of a meeting? Like you have to create the opportunities for a dialogue and a friendship to build.
Right.
And one of the surest ways I think is to be helpful. You help somebody out, you do an act of service, and then you're engaged with them, not in a taking way.
Hmm.
Like I think that a
Yeah.
lot of us need to relearn our actions and our motives when we're coming into the program and make sure that we're on the right side of our intentions in order to engage people because it's real easy for us to pick out the differences. Like I could sit all day long and tell you why 20 of the people in my home group and I are never going to be friends. Or I can just be nice to them and they could be nice to me and we don't have to become blood brothers.
Hmm. Yeah. I know yesterday we had someone that was coming in for the very first time, and they're bubbly personality anyway, and very friendly person anyway, but they were just totally amazed by the warm and loving reception that they received from all of us for someone who's brand new. And that goes right back to one of the most fundamental things we ever do. It's that person at the front door, welcome to whatever, you're in the right place. If you have any questions, come talk to me, and take them over and give them a coffee and get them settled down. And if it's someone from a different gender, then you put them in touch with that gender, and it happens. It's the start of something good. I remember my very first meeting. Um, I was completely, well, I was like a dime, thin, pale, and worthless. And this lady sat beside me, and kind of a Twilight Zone moment. My liver used to be hanging by a thread, but I'm all right now. And a year later, she has a baby. So flash forward 8 months for my second meeting, and um, this booming voice nearly deafened me and nearly squeezed my hand all to hell and nearly ripped my shoulder out with the handshake. Welcome to AA. It was a guy, and I'll never forget those things. And I don't remember much else about that first meeting except what happened to me after I came out of it. I went across the street to work, and I was asked to do something that part of my job, and was given absolutely no time to get it done. And in the process, somehow I asked the right questions of the right people. The phone rang from the bank. We were told what to do. I went and did it. And the next day, I found out that the big task got done, the deal got done, and everything's great. What I didn't know at the time, but I would find out 6 months later, is that the gentleman that served me at the bank would be my landlord. Now, how freaky is that?
Yeah,
And boys and girls, you will notice there are some really freaky things that happen to us when we get into the zone and get into the tribe. We find our tribe, and no one can extinguish your torch except you. So I'm getting a little low here, and that there we go. Um, yeah, it's good to have a tribe. Good to have lots of
absolutely.
tribes.
I think it is.
Yeah.
Do you got another question for me?
Okay, so we've sort of touched on hangry, lonely, tired. Um, I might be opening a door in a cheeky way here, but I've also heard horny, amorous, lecherous, and titillated. So there's that whole aspect of biology. Let's call it biology and how that can be distracting. So I don't know if we want to open that door or save that for another
Sure,
time.
sure, go for it.
Um, Yeah,
I love it.
you can lose your focus and get hyper focused in one direction, and that can be very destructive. And part of that can be the loneliness, not solitude, but loneliness. I'm thinking of periods of time in my life where um, what's wrong with me? Why don't I have someone in my life? Well, maybe I don't have enough good work done yet. Maybe I still am exhibiting certain forms of negativity that are not appealing. And, my sponsor said, well, work on you, be the best person you can be, and that will happen. But by being hyper focused on it, um, and if that's my sole motivation for anything I do, boy, that's another great ticket, another lane to leave the highway of recovery and go into the weeds real fast. So
Absolutely.
yeah, I came to AA the day after I got to my second meeting. I got divorce papers, so I was a single guy for quite a while, and that changes a lot of things. I know people that come in when they're married, and it's not an issue, but single can be lonely at times.
And so you hear a lot of people say that, give yourself a year, give yourself a year before you make any big relationship moves. And so you were already in the midst of that divorce,
Yeah,
but did you wait a year before you got together with another lady?
that was January. It was November. So yeah,
Okay.
pretty much.
And
A
even then,
civilian, a civilian.
a civilian. So
Yeah.
it wasn't even someone from in the rooms.
No, no, I was warned about that.
And have you ever dated someone in the rooms?
After the civilian left me, yeah, I was about 6, 7 years sober at the time. Yeah, yeah.
Okay. And how did that evidently didn't work out because you're with another civilian now.
I'm back to being with a civilian. So,
Yep.
doing the same thing over and over again is a form of insanity. Well, yeah, dating in the
There you
rooms can
are.
lead to that.
Yep. Well, like for myself, I mean, like, yeah, some like alcohol and drugs just never was a problem for my wife. Like,
Yeah,
she literally could have one and be like, that's it for the month or 2 months or whatever. Like it wasn't even an issue,
yeah,
and it was never like, oh, her having one and then she had to keep going the whole night. It was like, okay, I've had one, I'm good. And I'm like, what? I just couldn't understand that perspective. But coming into the rooms, I have certainly seen a lot of friends relapse over relationship problems, in their early sobriety. Like,
yeah,
I see why they are saying not to do that. And a big part of it, from my observation, I could be right or could be wrong, but it's kind of like that they start to base their happiness on that other person, and so then as soon as the relationship isn't good, they don't have their own joy or serenity to fall back on because it's been kind of built up in a codependent way in
yeah.
a
That's
relationship.
the word.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And and that's it's impossible to find happiness through somebody else long term.
Yes, and when your romantic partner assumes the role of sponsor, that's usually the death knell for any relationship. You got, go to your own corners. I
I,
do know of people who have been married now for 26 years and met in the program early days, both of them. And, when boy meets girl on AA campus, it does work sometimes.
well, I think, if they're both practicing good programs,
Yeah,
gosh, shouldn't you be able to resolve conflict a little bit easier than without? You
you
know?
would think.
I would think,
Yeah,
I mean, it's been something that I've wondered about, like I'm with my wife and we miraculously made it through my first 18 months now. But, I just, have I definitely thought at points, I'm like, I wonder if she was doing the steps, how this would be different, and shoulda, woulda, coulda, like you're never going to
yeah.
know. So,
Yeah, well, I'm blessed with a civilian that doesn't drink much, except for maybe one brief silly moment in Say Alita this year. 3 drinks is rare. Two is maybe. one is usual, and that's it. And I'm so blessed that I don't have that in my life. But that's something I would probably not choose. You know, you get to know someone if they're heavy
I
drinker, I
don't
probably
think
wouldn't go there.
I don't think I would want to kiss a constantly boozy mouth.
No,
You know, like that
yeah,
that would be, you know,
no,
that would be a little bit strange. Honestly, like that, and it's also like, you know, I think that party phase of my life is done. You know, like done where it's just like, and I don't see it as a spectator sport.
no, no.
No, not one bit. Okay, so just as we may be much more emotionally sensitive when we're physically tired, we find that we are emotionally exhausted, we're prone to get physically sick. When we're spiritually exhausted, we can feel deeply insecure. Some of us are at our best when we are moving and busy, and others of us recharge when we're alone and quiet. It may be as simple as sitting down for a brief meditation or showing up at a meeting. How do you recharge when you're emotionally exhausted?
Let's go back to Friday afternoon. Um, I've been working on preparing myself for what I had to do, and I was, you know, perfect example of halt. I hadn't packed my bags yet. I hadn't picked up my suits and ties and stuff like that, and I'm just running around like a headless chicken. Go, 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 go. And I just, enough. I had to sit and just be quiet for a while, and just need to go someplace and do that. I mean, of course, I could be a little more prepared and write things out and be organized, but no. I'm not perfect. I'm not perfect every day, all day, or any day. But um, yeah, going for a walk sometimes works. Bike ride, maybe something physical to just sort of recharge. Um, but you're right. The if you just going, foot to the floor all the time, it just exhausts you. And what happens sometimes is I fall asleep in front of the TV, put the TV on, and just have some other noise. I'm not even able to focus because I'm still so internally spinning about all the things I think I got to do. And I'm beating myself because I can't pick the order in which I got to get them done. And the bit of workaholism there, maybe, or a little ADD, or a whole bunch of other little things. Um, and I can get spun out of control. And again, body language exhibits it, and those around me might be set off a little bit, and they start in on me, and I go, "Rah," get the tone out again, and here we go. Happens on Fridays a lot. Um, but I noticed, and a previous friend mentioned to me, you're so worn down on Fridays. I like you a whole lot better on Sunday afternoon. You've
Yeah,
had a day and a half to unwind a little bit, and you're relaxed. And we used to do. She had a Saturday meeting, I had a Saturday meeting, so we would trade each other's meetings, and then we'd go dancing on Saturday night. So that was always fun. Um, but yeah, I was introduced to ballroom dancing, and it's more about this than it is about the feet and the hands. Um, it is mental, and it's getting engaged in something else completely different. That's what I do sometimes. I do have hobbies, and I enjoy them, um, and that's alone time too. It's also meditative to the point where I can actually find some peace, and my hands um, sorting and compiling and filing and all that kind of thing that goes along with this particular hobby. Um, it allows me that keeps me the active, but the brain is I got some peace, and I've been able to resolve a few things while doing this. So,
nice.
yeah,
Yeah, for me, for my emotional exhaustion, you know, I feel like I function better when I have a fairly full schedule. You know, like when I'm idle too much, that's not good
yeah,
for me. But there's a point where it's like all of a sudden I'm like high functioning, done. And when I hit that dumb point, it's generally because I've pushed myself through too much fatigue or just not given myself enough time to keep on my program. You know, like I go to an in-person meeting in Kelowna on Monday nights and I come home 2 hours after normally when I would lie down into bed, let alone get home, get settled, go to bed. And so I've learned don't plan things for early Tuesday for myself because I
Right.
know that my Tuesday morning is like your Friday afternoon. Like, I'm for sure not going to be as smart, not going to be as patient, not going to be as on it. My problem solving skills turn into problem making skills, you
Yeah.
know? And and for me, it's rest for sure, it's exercise, it's quantity of sugar consumed.
Mm.
Like if I've had if we make a batch of cookies or something like that and Six Cookie Johnson comes to town here, like Six Cookie Johnson's a jerk the next day.
Quality
Like,
control is important, though.
yeah, I know. But that's the whole thing about the snacking that I'm saying is a
Yeah.
struggle for myself, on that front. And, but doing things like these podcast meetings, they do help me recharge my batteries.
Mm.
I was not having a great day yesterday, by the afternoon, or I wasn't perceiving the day to be great. Let me say that. And then I was like, I almost didn't go to this guy's birthday cake, and I was just like, no, I'm just gonna stay home. And I'm like, stay home and just stay pissy, like
Yeah.
that. And I went out, and and it was great. It was wonderful to see the support of this newcomer. Like, there was probably well over 1,000 years of recovery in that room. Like, there was a
Wow.
yeah, it was insane. Like, they said it was the most that has ever come out. And the thing is because this guy had been struggling for 8 or 9 years. And this was the first time he made it to a year. And he did it by just going to meetings in every town for 5 towns around. And so all these people converged who had just watched him go through it and finally make it and finally just kind of have his aha in the last year. And they were all like, man, I would have missed this for the world. And man, it was really just such a proof of the family and the support that sits inside these rooms, when somebody needs it. I was happily immersed in love for Sean last night. It was
Oh, that's
great.
cool. That's
Yeah.
cool. Yeah.
Mm. You got another
Mm.
question, Jim?
Concerning Halt, just I think we've
Or
gone
just
through the
anything? We
just
we
adjusting.
I feel like at this point, Andrew's turned a corner and might not be joining us, so
Oh,
we might
okay.
as well just go with the plan of here we are,
Okay.
and this is what we'll
Um,
do.
okay, this one. What's your biggest aha moment you've had so far?
Well, okay, recently, I think you met him when we were down in Sayulita. There was a guy named Tom.
Yes.
Yeah, Tom, like, nice guy, had the good shares, ball cap, and it was a local in Sayulita. But we had him on the podcast, and he said this quote, that someone had said to him early in his recovery. He said, "This isn't a program of self improvement. This is a program of surrender." And,
Okay.
so for myself, my surrender was a really profound moment for me, like where I had a lot of mental I had a lot of mental real estate that was sold to consuming, acquiring, and my addiction. Like, I feel like it was like 30 to 70% of my brain was stuck in that cycle,
Hmm.
and into a debilitating point in some respects. And then with my surrender, all that kind of melted away. Like, I just really gave that headspace back to myself through the act of surrender. And but then I think that somewhere along my program, I deviated from the point where I started being the one who had to work on my anger, be the one who had to work on, my stress and that, instead of surrendering those aspects as well. And so, for me, in the last couple weeks, and everywhere I go, it's as if like I'm in an old movie and I'm passing this flashing billboard that says surrender because it is every single meeting I go to, every conversation I have, everything I see is either an opportunity for that I should be surrendering more on or that proof that I need to surrender more, or just like a reminder that it's something that I need to look at. So, for me, it feels like a real big aha moment has happened in the last couple of weeks where it's like, whoa, I got to do a U-turn here and kind of start rekindling my program again at step
Mhm.
three and moving forward again, because I feel like I started being too self-willy.
Mhm.
Yeah, I need to free self Willy.
Yeah, Free Willy.
Free
Free
self
Willy was the
Willy.
movie on the Voyager bus coming back from Ottawa to Toronto to face reality
Really?
yeah,
Oh,
on
that's
New
so
Year's Day.
funny.
So my dry date is New Year's Eve because of me being an impatient alcoholic. I started New Year's Eve in Toronto on the 29th and ended in Ottawa on the 30th and the 31st. I didn't go out first on the way back. It was Free Willy and it was all about hope. It was Forrest Gump. So yeah. Um, Aha moments. There's a I've had lots of them. Um, I've been at a Joe and Charlie, and I heard two members of our membership in Toronto speaking in French, and I asked the question, I don't know where it came from. Is there a French meeting in Toronto? One big aha moment was about 8 months later when we had our first one. And I was able to ask some questions and I brought some people together and together we created something. So that was an aha moment. Um,
And you're bilingual? Just to
no, I'm
confirm.
not. I grew
Oh,
up in Eastern Ontario and there is a dividing line. You know, we're still waiting for a score between Montcalm and Wolfe. That kind of the two solitudes was front and foremost in a growing up in that part of Ontario in 60s and 70s.
mm.
Um, I'm not bilingual, but guess what? Uh, the people that joined that meeting possible encouraged me, and my French did come back because we're of an age where we were put through French in high school. So if you lose it, you lose it when you don't use it. But it came back, and it was great fun. Another aha moment was at the podium, and this young lady is 5 months sober. And she says, you are responsible. You're responsible for your own sobriety. If your group isn't working for you, find a different one. If you've passed your sponsor or you've outgrown them, or if there's too much of a chasm between the two of you, find another one. Don't be afraid to make changes and those kinds of things as well. Because the last thing you want to do is change your dry date. You owe it to yourself to be an advocate for yourself. So that was kind of an aha moment. Like I described about that first day in AA after that second meeting, that was a pretty big one. Um, you know, I'm on the bus one time and I'm thinking, oh, you know what, I probably need to get a second job or something because I'm slowly sinking. And within seconds, my telephone rings. And it is someone that's in their first year, about 10 months sober. Um, and he said, please say yes, because if you don't, I'm going to jail tonight. I need a place to stay. He had maybe stretched things, but he had been given some choices by a very thoughtful police officer. And he ended up sharing an apartment with me for a while and did all the cooking and did all the grocery shopping for a while. And I ended up giving him his 1 year medallion. Little things can happen. Aha, those God moments do happen. And yeah, if anyone's out there in the early days, stop looking at your shoes and look up at heaven. That if you feel like someone's throwing rocks at the back of your head, turn around and look up at it. It may be a gold nugget from above that you can run with, and it's not as bad as it could be or as you think it could be.
I think so. I would say that there's lessons and silver linings inside all
Mm.
this. You know, I had a house burned down when I was 25 and lost everything, and what that taught me was one of the best lessons in my life. And it took me almost 15 years to see the lesson in that event. So, we're not meant to see the lessons in our biggest challenges the moment they happen. You know, like we're just not big picture enough, I feel like, for it. Like to be able to step back from our pain immediately. So I think that, there's amazing lessons through all this if we just keep an open mind and keep pushing forward.
Mm. How many times do we go, oh, that's what I was supposed to do, or that's what that means, or
Yeah.
oh boy,
Yeah.
yeah, now I get it.
Exactly. Exactly. And
And if
it's
you don't get it
generally
the first time, the big guy's going to make sure you do it again.
yeah, exactly. I 100% believe that for sure. Yep. Okay, I'm going to ask you another question.
Ooh, okay.
And I think that this one is a little bit applicable to you. Okay, so you look around for the old timers and notice you might be them. We're grateful for those who are still with us, but we also must be open to learning from those who come after us, or we will get very lonely. Anonymity means that we're all equals in AA, no matter how much clean time we have. How do you learn from old timers and newcomers alike?
Well, that's very timely because I was thinking about that. I go to the podium and if this is your first assembly, thank you for being here. If you're new, thank you for being here.
Mm,
And if you're not new, thank you for being there because
yeah,
you brought it to us. I've I don't consider myself an old timer, but I know I am. There's a change in the language around here lately, and they call them wise timers. Okay,
okay,
it's kind of cheesy, cheeky, but it is applicable. Um, yeah, the old timers. As you get, don't drink and don't die. That's how you stay. That's how you get a long time. Um, my current sponsor is 76, and he's having health issues, and I'm getting worried for him, not for me, for him. Um, I think back to what it was like, and my very first group, there was the elder statesman there, and he looked an awful lot like my dad, and turned out he was my grand sponsor. Um, I learned a lot from him about service and stuff and history of AA. And any history that I have is based on my experience. It may be applicable, it may be not. And that goes for you too. And because your experiences may be different than mine, I can learn from you. And it doesn't matter how long you've got, but it could change my life. Yes, I've heard I've heard this cheeky old thing. Go to lots of meetings. You'll hear lots of good things. It may save your life. It may save somebody else's too. And the stuff that's stored in me, is it stored for me for my benefit, or is it stored in me just for long as that there's something will tweak it and it'll come out and it may change someone else's life. So yeah, loves telling stories about things that have happened to me, changes that I've seen, things that I've done that worked, and things that I do didn't work. Right? I can be a good example, a bad example, or a really good example, a bad example. It doesn't matter, and it's all in the interpretation. Um, but yeah, there's long timers like we have past delegates here that have been around and they are creeping up in years and next week I have my Beatles birthday and I can't believe that I'm here and but I still feel like a teenager. I feel still that brat is still in me that wants to go and you know people please or seek attention or whatever, be silly and inane or profane, instead of being I don't know, scholarly maybe is a word, and be able to, I'm not going to tell you what to do, but I can tell you what I did, and that's all I can do. Same for you.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm a newcomer by any stretch of the imagination, but it was really interesting the last week. So last Thursday, there was somebody who took 35 years at an in person I went to, and then last night was a 1 year. And so when I read this before I made that question, um, I saw that unless there is a constant engaging with new people, like first of all, without sponsors, I do believe this program could die. Like, because I think that,
Hmm.
somebody just reading and interpreting the steps from the books without somebody actually engaging and showing them the path would be the folly of the steps. Like there's a certain element of it that I feel is like a heritage thing passed on when you're showing somebody the steps. Like, don't like it. I just personally, for myself, I would not have interpreted the steps to the level I've been able to without a helping hand. And,
Hmm.
but so at these two birthdays, there was 14 people at this guy's 35, and there was 65 people at this guy's 1 year. And, like I thought, and the guy who had 35 years, he's like, a lot of my friends have passed already. Like,
Yeah.
if I make it to 35 years, Jim, I'm going to be 86 years old. Like I just
Yeah, you're a
did.
young pop still.
I'm a young pup still, but what I'm
Yeah.
saying is time wise for clean time. Like so, if you're not actively engaging with the newer people in the program, right? It'll
Hmm.
be just like it is for a lot of old people who are left there lonely with nobody to share those moments with, and so I think, for myself, it is that sponsorship. It is that welcoming the newcomer. It is that maintaining a feeling of unity at the meetings. Like if somebody comes in and there's just dissension and things aren't good, where's the attraction versus promotion in that? Like people have to see a life that they want to live inside the program, and people have to see a community that they want to be part of when they come in.
Your last two questions, you've given me a thought that kind of combines the two of them.
Okay, yeah, go for it.
Um,
I'm happy to restart up
yeah,
later.
I was so in earlier days, I was at a 50-year medallion. There's those are rare, and if you ever get a chance to go to one, it's a special thing.
Hmm.
But the recipient had all of the readings and the slogans and all of that stuff. He was very, very clever in his picking of his people. They were all local people and they all had 48, 49, 50 years as well. We got to see it all locally. Um, 2005, the World Conference was here in Toronto, and there is an old timers meeting. And you have to be 35 years to even be considered to come up on stage. And I think 41 was the cutoff the last time. Vancouver is coming in July of this year. It's the World Conference in Vancouver.
Are you going?
I'm not going.
Oh no.
But there will be that newcomer that old timers meeting, and to be in the presence of that many people. I've been to a 55-year medallion for a friend, and it really is something else. Um, and it's a kind of an aha moment as well. And this is what you can achieve. I remember back to I was about 9 months sober. Actually, this combines about the last four answers. About 9 months sober, I went to my first roundup, and the speaker, this was 1996, and the speaker had 51 years of sobriety. So you do the math. He was telling about the lost year of his life when he was finishing World War II, was in England, and could not get decommissioned back to Canada. And all he did was drink. And I was like, now I hear it. I heard history, and an early history of AA, and it was like so fascinating. But anybody today that's got 50 years, we're not going back into the 70s. And the outside of AA history, I'm relevant. It's relevant to me and for me, but it's like, yeah, this is pretty cool. Um, you know,
I,
um, sorry.
no, I was totally happy for you to
Yeah,
say that.
yeah.
Yeah, the cool thing for this guy's 1 year chip last night
Oh, that was a good one.
is his family had been in AA, but I guess AA first came to British Columbia in 1945. I think was the first group out here, and he was given last night. He found this in a box at his parents' place. It was his great uncle's 1 year medallion from 1947. It was so cool to see. It looked so different. Like it kind of had the
Mhm.
old rounded AA on it, and yeah, it was totally like nothing I'd ever seen, and like it looked like it was kind of like a real brass or something like that. Like it wasn't made out of gold, but it was golden, and it was definitely not like a modern alloy and had weight to it. And unfortunately, I didn't have my reading glasses and I couldn't read the reading on it, but it had a whole reading on the backside of it.
Back to your question about old timers and newcomers. This Saturday, my group is going to have, I think, 7 birthday recipients, and we are celebrating at least one-year medallion every month. There was a couple points last fall where at 7 a.m. in the morning we would have maybe 30 people in the room, and maybe 20 of them are less than a year.
Wow.
And there was some twos in there, and there's some threes in there, and there's some eights in there. And these are the people that I've seen come in, and we're just so interwoven with each other that it is truly magnificent. And AA is alive and well here in Oakville, and we must be doing something right that people are finding us. And I wish that for every location that I listen to me right now, that hope you do whatever you can to make it visible, because
Mm.
being invisible can be deadly.
I don't know who had the vision, but the group I go to in Kelowna on Mondays, it's called the Monday Night Beginners.
Hmm.
It was the smartest thing somebody ever did was to call it a beginners group because everybody goes online. They literally like, oh man, I got to get into this AA. Like, my life is unmanageable. And, and they see Monday Night Beginners. So they come to our group. Like,
Yeah,
our attendance was like 85 people on Monday, which is huge for here. Like other meetings
yeah,
are like, please help us, we're dying. And, we don't have enough chairs or fire code capacity to go any further than what we're at now. But, like just naming a group beginners
yeah.
changed the face of how that group gets attended. And it's totally amazing. So one of the things though that I get to see at this group, one of the cool things is there's always new people. There's
Yeah.
always new people, and also though because word is out, right? We also get a lot of like the local old timers who whose groups don't get new people very much and come looking kind of for sponsees for people who need help, right? So
Mhm.
we get these like just fresh raw people that like one of the things that you can learn immediately from a newcomer is what you don't want to go back to.
Yeah.
Like just seeing that pain in their eyes reminds me of that pain I had. And
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 people that don't come back don't find out what happens to people who don't come back.
yeah, and and then getting to hear these old timers share at like there's just some phenomenal um evolution in people's interpretation of the things that are presented in this literature and in this program. And you know I don't feel like I'm stupid and I don't feel like I'm smart, but I feel like I'm definitely curious and want to keep learning all the time. So I find it really fascinating. even as a musician, I've always said I can learn something from the person who's starting their first day of guitar. And, and because everybody has a different way of seeing and interpreting things. And, like one little sentence can clue me in on something that I might have just not observed because
Mhm.
that's where their attention could interpret where mine couldn't. And so that's one of the beauties of this being a we program is that we get to share. Like we literally come together to share.
Mhm.
And if you just keep your ears open, you're bound to learn something.
That's right. Yeah,
Yeah.
all the cheeky things I've heard, take the cotton batting out of yours, put it in your mouth. You get best two out of three, best two out of three,
Yeah.
best two out of three. You can
Yeah.
hear, but do you listen? You
Yeah.
can see, but do you observe? Right? Anybody, and then back to your point there, anybody can learn something on any given day from any given person.
Yeah.
Period.
Open
Yeah.
mindedness.
Our magic book. When did they put that in there? Well, it's always been in there. Someone may read that sentence a different way, put the emphasis on the different syllable, and and it changes everything for me. And you might have missed it, and I have missed it for the last 472 times. But
Mm.
this time today, oh, now I get it.
And
Yeah.
even, like that for me has been my experience in sponsorship and reading the book with my sponsor. Like we'll
Yeah.
read a paragraph and he'll be like, what'd you get out of that? And I'll be like, this. And he's like, what about this sentence? And I was like, huh? I didn't even see that sentence.
Yeah.
Like, because sometimes it's real easy to read something for me and the first part will have an impact and I'll almost like ruminate on that first part while I'm reading the second part.
Yeah.
And then I miss the second part entirely because of the power of the first part when really the second part was the big reveal.
Right. Yeah, we're limited by our preconceived limitations or our preconceived concept of what interpretations what that word means, and yeah, that's why we have a we program to solve our we problem.
Absolutely. Do you have another question for me?
Oh, I'm having a hell of a time thinking of stuff.
I got one more.
Okay.
Yeah,
Um,
but I'd love for you to ask one if you come up with one.
oh, okay. How do you define joy these days?
Whew, how do I define joy? So I feel like joy to me these days is like the okay, first of all, I think I need to start with serenity.
Hmm.
I was like a 0 or 11 person. Like I was off or I was off the charts.
Yeah.
Like, and that's the only place I existed until I entered the program. And it was really in step work that I first experienced my first like actual acknowledgement and moments of what I would call serenity. And I would call that serenity occurring in my 6 to 7 zone. Some people call it the neutral zone in the middle, but I
Yeah.
feel like it's slightly above that. Like I feel like it's just above. It's just on the plus side of negative, and for me. And so joy to me is like that fuzzy zone between the top side of serenity and going higher. Like
Hmm.
that's where my joy is now. And examples of current levels of joy is walking my dogs and laughing with my mom. Is playing music. Joy
Hmm.
is doing these podcasts and having great connections with people that I love. Joy is being of service to my family and friends. Um, you know, Joy is a loving interaction with a family member where I feel like, maybe I did get to practice some of these principles in all my affairs. Joy is a good meeting to me. Um, Joy is a sunny day. That I would say that that's joy to me now. What about for you?
Um, Contentment in the little things,
Boom.
perhaps. Boom. Yeah. That's the big 50,000 feet above picture, but coming down to earth a little bit more. Um, Knowing that I didn't give in to my fears and I accomplished something. Um, Joy is making my wife laugh, um, spending time with her, um, knowing that I'm not the zero I think I am, but I'm also not the hero. The joy can a little bit. So let's throw a little humility into the recipe here a bit, but um, yeah, I did that, and I didn't quit. So I get, pride, but not prideful. Uh, any one of the human emotions can be. And maybe that's the answer. Maybe using the human any given human emotion in the proper amount for the situation that presented itself today. I
Oh, I
didn't
like that.
go too high, I didn't go too low. I used the right one, like reaching in my golf bag and getting the right stick, getting the
Yeah,
right tool. Yeah. But
absolutely.
yeah, that's a little closer to the ground. But yeah, I do like going outdoors and being outdoors. And I see a sunny day and it's like, yeah, let's get outside. You know,
My first sponsor said gratitude is an action.
yeah.
And, he was had a real connection with the world. And he said, like, you want to give gratitude for a beautiful day, let it shine on your face
Yeah.
and smile.
Smile.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Let the
And,
sunshine in.
I just, I love that because I do really take to heart that gratitude is an action. And, like you want to show gratitude for your family, do something nice for them, spend time with them, tell them you love them,
Hmm. Yeah.
Don't just put it on a piece of paper and not share it with what you're supposed to be grateful for.
Hmm.
And
If
that's,
you're out and about and before you come home, pick up the phone and say, "Is there anything you need?" I mean, it's a simple little thing.
yeah, that is a great one. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
It's the little details and the little things, and just being aware of them. That's yeah,
Okay,
and
I got
dealing
a
with them.
doozy for a last
Okay.
question. You ready?
Okay.
You ready?
Okay. It'll be your last question. I'm running out.
Yeah. Okay, so we let go of the things that cut us off from other people and from ourselves. There were parts of me that were frozen because of my childhood damage, explained one member. I made a decision that no one would hurt me again and I would rely on myself. It created a very lonely world. There wasn't room for anyone else, not even my higher power. It took some serious step work to recognize how my early relationships set the patterns for later ones. Did you find that in your step work, early relationships had cut you off from others? And how did that change inside your growth?
Okay. So yes.
Okay.
Um, about five, I fell down some stairs, hit my head, developed some epilepsy related illnesses. And as a result of that, little Jimmy shouldn't, little Jimmy can't, little Jimmy learns that he's less than. And so I don't even try. So I'm not that motivated to do things. Um, at the passing of both of my parents, I was reminded by many of their friends about the uneven treatment that my younger brother and I received. Um,
And
he
by
could do
that
no
you
wrong.
mean which? Oh, okay.
I could do
Sorry.
no wrong, and he could do no right. Or no, he could do no wrong, and I couldn't do anything right. And so maybe perhaps now I'm approval seeking. Um, why can't you be like your brother? He's done this, this, and this, but you're divorced and you're in AA. Well, Bobby died of cirrhosis. So guess what? Doing step four, one of my resentments was the favoritism he received.
Even though other
And
people thought it was him or you.
that was clearly my dad favored my brother over me.
Okay.
And my mother clearly favored me over my brother. So I had a prodder and a smother.
Okay.
Okay. Um, Doing the step work revealed to me finally I should not be resentful to my brother for there's something he received. He didn't ask for it.
Hmm.
It was just given to him. The resentment still with the father, obviously, about that. But you know what? Um, he had, I distinctly remember this weight going off of me when in 2017 he was in his hospital bed, suffering from a stroke. And I had the opportunity to give him a shave with an electric razor. And he was still, he'd put the chin out and stuff like that. He participated and he knew what was going on. Couldn't speak much. And that was the last time I saw him alive. But as I left the room, I turned around and I did my 8 and 9 right then and there. It's the last time. I don't know if he heard me or not. Um, and I felt free for the first time. Here's this. Yes, I still, we may have a strained relationship, um, but he's still my father and I still love him and all of that. And I was able to free myself so much as I walked down the hall to the car to come home from Ottawa. And yeah, the trip home was memorable. And the same thing when my mom passed away about 3 years later. I was able to say things to her and do what was necessary. And I had a very difficult choice to make, and the step work really helped. Yeah, so it can help you understand why you feel the way you feel, and which sometimes makes you understand why you do what you do because you feel what you feel. And if you don't, nothing changes and nothing moves. Just get moving, get on with it.
I love that. Yeah.
Thanks, man. Yeah.
Did I find that in my step work, early relationships cut me off from others? Absolutely. I think that I was physically on the defensive as a child. Like it was really rough in Oshawa. And I'm not sure about your childhood, but like I had to fight a lot growing up. What I've realized is that that very action has created it is like anger used to be my solution because the quicker I fought back, the quicker pain would stop. And
Mhm.
but that doesn't work now as an adult in a conversation versus like getting home and surviving. So to get angry as my instinctual reaction, it doesn't serve anything. In fact, it pushes people away for sure. And then it also, um, it makes me want to leave a situation. Like as soon as I'm angry, it was like fight and flight as a child. I would fight and then I would get out of there. The whole point of me fighting as a child was to be able to flee and walk home because the people who couldn't walk home were the ones that were hurt, right? So
Mm.
it's like I would fight, eliminate, and run before the other people could gang up on me enough to not make it so I could run. And so it created a fight and flight person, which is really challenging to seek resolution in things. And it also it's like the whole program today we're talking about halt. There is no pause if your first thing is to fight. Like
Hmm.
it's the opposite of halting.
Exactly.
It's like eliminate and run. Like which would be a funny name for a program. Eliminate and run. Don't resolve
Exactly.
anything, just strike and take off.
Bring it back to halt, man. Yeah, yeah. Halt.
Yeah.
Stop feeling this way. Stop thinking this way. Try something new.
Yeah, so I
Yeah.
mean, inside my step work, at least I brought this to an awareness, and you know, um, I really have been praying on it a lot and trying to learn how to surrender this. Because what I said earlier, I feel is 100% true that I took a little bit of a wrong turn and really, tried to free willy myself instead of giving my will away, and
Mhm.
that's really hard. So I mean, it's work in progress for the rest of my life probably here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, I think, but that's the whole thing is that A, I'm in love with the process, and B, I'm happy to continue on it. I'm not approaching it with a defeatist attitude like, oh, that didn't work the first 6 months, so fuck this, I'm out of here. I'm going back to partying.
Mhm.
Like partying's not a solution for me anymore.
Yeah.
It's not in the hey, I'm okay with partying and train wrecking my life. That's over. You know, I don't want that, and I'm happy for to be working on other solutions.
It's called a design for living, and if you weave the threads of those principles into your life, yeah, life still is lifey. Life will still go on. Life will still present the same things, but you're just better prepared to respond to them instead of to react to them. And that's the change.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Well,
yeah.
I'm out of questions.
I think I am too.
I think I wish you, the best time possible today, what you're
Okay.
going to for
Yeah.
love and support for your family.
Well, thank you. Yeah. Yes. And one more halt. I had a lovely time. So,
Oh, I love that. Well, tune in next episode for more recovery fun, everybody. Bye bye. We love
been a
you.
blast, man.
Please help
Keep
us
on
help
rocking the
others.
happy
If you
drive.
like what you've seen here today, please subscribe and share this podcast and help us get to 100 followers. We're looking for interaction with our audience. So please email recoveryfreedomrising@gmail.com or contact Milan South Okanagan Starcic on Facebook with questions, topic suggestions, or just comments. We'd love to hear from you.